Your database is the most important part of your application, and in my opinion, a database design is what makes or breaks an application, okay? I think it's the first thing that we should be doing in terms of planning and designing our application, even before thinking about the user experience and the workflows. And so in this video, we're going to be learning about the fundamental principles of database design, how we can design and structure a database in Bubble.io, and how we can optimize our database as well, so our database is able to perform and scale in the long term, okay? So I like to think of a web application as a little universe that we're building, and our database is what holds these main objects of our universe, okay? And when we're designing a database, there's really two main questions that we need to think about, okay? So these are, what are the things and objects that exists within our universe, and what are the relationships between these things, right? So in our case here, our universe contains roads, trees, buildings, cars, right? So these are the main objects that exist in our application. Now, really what we need to think about are what are the highest category of objects, right? So for example, we could have smaller cars, bigger cars, we could have green cars, yellow cars, right? But the highest category of object here is car. So we need to define these objects for our application, okay? And we also need to be thinking about what are the relationships between these things, right? So a road may contain multiple buildings, right? A road may contain multiple trees, and how are these things related, okay? So let's take Amazon, for example, and let's think about what are the main objects that we have on the Amazon database, okay? So on the Amazon's website, we might have a user, we might have a shopping cart, and we might have products, okay? Now, if we think about YouTube, for example, right? What do we have? We have users, which are creators, right? We have channels, we have videos. Each video has, comments, okay? So these are the highest category of objects that we have on the YouTube's database, okay? And let's keep this in mind because we're going to be building the YouTube's database structure inside Bubble.io. So let's keep this in mind, okay? And let's try to figure out the relationship between these things, okay? So if we think about Amazon, a user might have a single shopping cart, and a shopping cart might carry a list of products, okay? And on YouTube's example, a user might hold a channel, and each channel might hold a list of videos, right? And each video might hold a list of comments, okay? So what's important for us to do as a first step in our application is designing our database, which means understanding what are the highest category of objects we have on our database, we have in our application, and how are these objects related to each other, okay? So this is the first step. And when we talk about the database, the Bubble database specifically, we are talking about a relational database, right? As the name suggests, we're able to create relationships between the data, and we're also able to perform operations, okay? So we can add more data, delete more data, move data around. And as a first step, what's important for us to understand here is how this data is organized within Bubble, okay? So it's organized within tables and columns and rows. It's very similar to an Excel spreadsheet if you really think about it, okay? And we need to really understand the difference between objects, right, which is called data types in Bubble, versus attributes, which is called field in Bubble.io, okay? So let's take a look at the Bubble editor and see how the data is organized within our data tab. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have our data types, and on the right-hand side, we have our fields, okay? We can see here that we have a pre-configured data type, which is the user. This is a brand new application, so when you create your application, you also have the user configured here. And we have fields or attributes of this user, right? The built-in attributes are email, modified date, created date, and slug, okay? Now, we're also able to create new fields, right? So this user might have a birth date, for example, okay? And each field that we create has an associated field type, right? So the basic field types in bubble.io are these ones, which are text, number, numeric range, date, date range, date interval, yes or no, file, image, and geographic address, okay? So in our case, if we want to configure birth date, for example, we're going to choose date as a field type. Now, this user might also have, a profile photo, for example, which in this case, we would choose an image as a field type, okay? And so this way, we're able to configure or create data types on the left-hand side, and then configure the attributes of this data type on the right-hand side, okay? So now let's start configuring the YouTube database here in bubble.io, the one that we've seen here on the board. Okay, so for YouTube, we have creators. Each creator has a channel. Each channel has a list of videos. Each video has a list of comments. Okay, so let's try to create these data types here in Bubble and see how we can create these relationships between the data. Okay. Now let's start configuring our data types. So we have channel, we have video, and we have comment, okay? Now on the user data type, let's create the link between the user and the channel, okay? So this is how we would do it. We would essentially create a variable called channel. And now that we've configured our data types, if we open the field type dropdown, we can see the basic types, which we've seen before, but we can also see the data types, right? So if I choose channel here, for example, what I'm essentially doing is creating a link between the user table and the channel table, right? So here a user has an attribute called channel that holds a channel, that holds this channel data type, okay? So this is how we're able to create these relationships in Bubble, okay? We have normal attributes, and we can create attributes that are linked to another data type as well, okay? So now let's take a look at ChartsDB, which is a database editor that I use to essentially visualize my databases and create these relationships visually. Okay, so let's start configuring our database, okay? So we have the user table. Now we have a channel, right? We have videos, and we have comments, okay? Let's keep these singular. Okay, let me delete table 1. Okay, perfect. And so now what we've done in the Bubble, right, not visually, but what we've done there in the database is to link the user to the channel. Okay, so let's do the same thing here, okay? So a user might have a field for the channel, and let's create this relationship here, okay? So I'm basically just linking these two together. Now the channel holds a list of videos, right? Multiple videos. So let's create a variable here on the channel so that it can hold a list of videos. And let's create this relationship here as well. And then for each video, we also have a list of comments, okay? So let's create a field here for the list of comments, okay? And create this relationship as well, right? So what's really important to notice here is that on each relationship, we have this one-to-one relationship, okay? And these relationships could either be one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, many-to-many, okay? So it's really important for us to now decide these things are related together, right? They're linked together, but what's really the direction of this relationship? So on the user channel, for example, right? So a user is able to hold one channel, right? So we have one variable called channel holding a single channel, right? So this one-to-one relationship is correct. Now moving to the channel video, we have a single variable, a single attribute called list of videos that hold a list of videos, right? So in this case, the relationship should be here one to many, right? So one variable holds multiple videos. And now the same thing happens here with the video and comment, right? So one variable called list of comments holds multiple comments. So the relationship is one to many, okay? Now you might be asking something here, right? Which is, why does the channel data type hold a list of videos and not each video has a reference to the channel. Okay. Now, if each video had a reference to the channel, this is what things would look like. Okay, I'm going to delete this relationship for now. And I'm going to delete this list of videos variable here because the channel will not hold a list of videos anymore. And here on the video, right, we're going to create a variable, a reference to the channel. Okay, so now the relationship might look something like this, right? It's a one-to-one. Okay, right? And we have one variable called channel here in the video that points to the channel it is from, right? Now, in some cases, this could be an effective way to structure your databases. And in other cases, this will really impact your performance, okay? So let's take a look at why, in this case, this is not an ideal structure for what we're trying to build here, okay? So let me just go back to the initial relationship that we had, which is a channel holds a list of videos, okay? So let's go to the drawing board again and let's see, let's talk about these different cases and why one would be more ideal to the other in this scenario. So essentially we have, this user, we have this channel, and each channel has multiple videos. Okay. And so our database looks something like this, right? In terms of relationships. Okay, a channel holds multiple videos, right? And so the other scenario would be essentially this, right? So instead of the channel holding the videos, each video would essentially point to the channel, right? Now, let's create a scenario here where we need to display to this user in our application the list of their videos, okay? How would we do this in bubble.io? So with this database structure, what I would essentially do is this, is user, I would find the user channel, and I would simply display the list of videos, okay? Now, on this case, what we'd need to do is to search for videos, okay? So now we're creating a search in our database for all the videos that exists from all the users, and we are essentially applying a filter. And the filter would essentially be the channel is equal to the user's channel, okay? Now, in this case, this would be very ineffective, right? If you think about YouTube, it has millions and millions of videos. If YouTube wants to display my videos, right, it would have to search millions and millions of videos to find maybe 40, 50 videos, right? So this is very ineffective compared to, our channel just holds a list of 50 videos and we're able to create this one directional linking here, okay? Now, this case here, this is good when our list of data is not infinite, okay? So maybe we have even, 100 videos, 200 videos, right? It's not infinite. It's very hard for a YouTube channel to have a million videos, right? So essentially this list is not infinite, right? And this case here would be good when the list of data is or could be infinite, okay? So one scenario where it could be infinite is, for example, if we're building a chat application or a chat feature inside our application where two users can communicate and they could essentially communicate for months or even years. So we could essentially have a chat that holds a list, a very big list of messages, okay? So here's what it would look like. Right, so a user might have a data type called chats, okay? And, that can hold a list of chats. Yes, a list of chats. And each chat would hold multiple messages, okay? Right, so in this case, it does make sense for the message to reference the chat instead of the other way around, okay? Okay, so in this scenario, this would be better than having a chat holding millions of messages, okay? Now, if we were to display a list of messages to this user, what we would essentially do is a search for messages. And in this case, you know, it would look for all the messages within the application. I know it doesn't look optimal, but in the bubble.io documentation, they mentioned this, that if the list here, the list of data is really big or has the potential to be infinite, then it is better to create a database structure that looks like this. Okay, so it would search for all the messages and would filter, and the filter would essentially be, you know, the chat is equal to, you know, maybe we have a variable inside the user that holds the current chat, right? That we want to display. So let's say the user's current chat, for example, or the pages chat, something like that. Okay, so now that we understand how we can create these relationships, and also we understand the importance of the direction of these relationships, let's go ahead into bubble.io and actually build the entire YouTube database there, okay? So we have configured the channel, comments, user, and videos, right? And so on the user data type, we've already configured, we've already created the link between the user and the channel, right? So let's move on to the channel, and the channel actually holds a list of videos, okay? Now we can select the data type video, and we can check this checkbox here, which says this field is a list, right? We're holding a list of videos. Now the channel might have other attributes as well, right? It might have a name, and let's say I want my user to configure if the channel is public or private, okay? So if we were to create an attribute called privacy, and we look at the field types, we don't see anything here that would enable us to set a couple of variables for the user to choose from, okay? So in this case, we would essentially create an option set. Okay, so an option set is a way within bubble.io that we can create a list of static variables, right? So so a list of variables that don't change. Okay, for example, privacy is either public or private. That's never going to change. Okay, you know, a list of days of the week, right? It's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. So option sets are a smart way for us to configure these variables, okay? So let's create an option set privacy, and let's create the options public and private. Now, if we go back to the channel data type and we try to configure this field again, so privacy, we will now see that we have the basic data types, we have the data types themselves, and we also have option sets. So I can choose this OS privacy here. And now you can see that my user will be able to select either public or private, okay? So this is a smart way for us to configure attributes using option sets as well. So now that we have the database configured, so I wished on Bubble we would be able to see our database visually like we can see here in ChartsDB. But in Bubble.io, what we've essentially done is to create these tables and link these together, right? So now let's take a look at the Bubble.io design tab and see how would we display a list of videos for that user, right? So the same examples that we've created here, like with this database structure and this database structure, let's try to display to the user this list of videos here. Okay, let's see how we would do this. So I would essentially place a repeating group first, okay? And the type of content will be videos. We want to display videos. And the data source would essentially be current user channel list of videos, okay? Now, this repeating group would essentially display the list of videos. Now, if we had the other database structure where the videos had a reference to the channel, this is how we would configure, right? So we would do a search for videos. This would pull all the videos from our database, and then we would add a constraint, right? My constraint would be the channel is equal to the current user's channel. I haven't really created a channel variable in the video, but I will do that just to show you in this example, okay? So let's create this channel attribute here. And now let's go back to the design and say we're searching for the videos where the channel is equal to the current user's channel, right? So essentially, these repeating groups would display the same thing, right? But this one would be very ineffective since it would look into all the videos inside our bubble.io app just to display a few videos from that user. Whereas this one's looking into the user's channel, list of users, right? So this is a lot more effective considering the list of videos is, about, 20, 30, 50, right? If the list of videos were, a million videos, then we would probably be better off doing the search of videos, okay? So now there's the last thing that I want to talk to you about, which is how we optimize the user data type, okay? So the user data type that comes built in, how we can keep it lightweight, and why it is important to keep this lightweight, okay? So let's take a look at ChartsDB again. So we can think about the user data type as some sort of a backpack, for example, okay? So the user data type is the only data type that will essentially load on every page of our app, okay? So imagine the user data type is the user's backpack, and the user is traversing within the pages of our app, carrying a very heavy backpack, right? So the user would be able to traverse within the app very slowly. Whereas if the backpack is lightweight, then the user would be able to move a lot faster within our application, okay? So it is really important for us to think about this user data type, okay? It is one of the most important ones in our application, and we should be able to keep it optimal, which means keep it lightweight. So let's say the main feature of our app is this channel, the videos, and the comments, right? But we also want to create a feature in an app to allow our user to create a portfolio, for example, right, as a secondary feature, okay? So let's create these tables. Let's create a portfolio, and the portfolio might carry some projects, for example, okay? So I'm just going to link these two. Of course, I would create a project variable here to hold the list of projects, but I'll do this just for simplicity. And now on the user side, on the user table, let's do something similar to what we've done with the channel, right? So we want the user to carry this portfolio, okay? So let's create this relationship here, okay? Now, as a secondary feature, right, maybe there's just one page in our application where we need data from the portfolio and the projects, okay? But now, if we do it this way, where the user carries the portfolio, now he's going to be carrying this weight through all the pages in the application, right? So if the user goes to the settings, we're loading the portfolio data. If the user goes to the channel page, we're loading the portfolio data. And so this might be not necessary in all the pages. And so what could be a smart way to solve this is to, instead of having the portfolio here held on the user, on the portfolio, we'll have a reference to the user, right? So, and then we create this linking here. So in this case, whenever we need the portfolio, we'll do a search for all the portfolios and find the user portfolio, which might not be, a super efficient way to do that. But considering that we have to do this for only one page, for example, and then we have, another 20 pages in the application where we don't need to be carrying the portfolio data, this could be a good solution. Okay, so this way we're keeping the user lightweight, and we're also able to retrieve the portfolio data in the application whenever we need. Okay, so the main takeaway here is to really think about the user data type and keep it lightweight, so the user can move within the pages of your application really quickly without carrying a lot of weight. Okay, so we've reached the end of this video, and we've learned a lot today about database structures and how to optimize them. And if you ever have any questions about database designs or anything bubble related in general, I would highly suggest join No Code Buffs, which is essentially a free community that I've built so you can enter your questions and connect with people that are also learning no code, especially bubble.io, but it's open to anyone with any other no code skills and AI automation and anything else. Okay. So, please post your questions here. I'm going to personally answer all of them, and you can also connect with people that are on the same journey. Okay. So join No Code Buffs to learn a little bit more. So thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.